1968 was the year of the great disenchantment for the American people. Not only the Vietnam War, but also the assassination of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy pushed a whole generation to seek alternative lifestyles. In 1970, I lived in Montreal, the metropolis of Quebec, where I shared a house with a group of European and Canadian friends. One of them was Thomas Wahlberg from Sweden, who was as interested as I in exploring the American communes. We traveled with a Volkswagen van full of 16mm equipment, which had cost us the savings of 2 years of hard work. And so we went and crossed the United States coast to coast, visiting several communes and filming them over a period of time.
Well, Twin Oaks is one big experiment. Basically, Twin Oaks is setting out to do two things. One of them is to create a society fit for humans to live in. The other one is to create humans fit to live in that society. Now, neither of these basic goals lend themselves to easy formulae. And so in order to get to them, you've got to experiment step by step by step. Well, people aren't equal. Some people are a lot more intelligent, other people are better looking, some people have more experience and different experiences and so forth. We don't pretend that they are. The idea of equality, we define it as no member envying or having cause to envy another member. So when you go to the dinner table and one person piles his plate this high and the other person just takes one little piece of meat and a little pile of rice, if that's all that person wants, then as far as we're concerned, they're getting an equal supper. The ideal equality is for everyone to take as much as he wants. And it wouldn't matter if some people had a lot more. The problems with equality come when the quantities are restricted, when you've got an economy of shortages. Now, there are some things that are just naturally in shortage at all times. For example, at a meeting, there's a shortage of airtime. No one person can speak more than just so much without getting on other people's nerves and bumping into other egos.
So the land is 123 acres, and it gives us one of the three sources of our economic support, and that is our agricultural activities. We both have animals and raise crops. The animals are primarily cattle. We have about 18 head of cattle, dairy and beef, and we have pigs, and we have a few chickens. But we also have a 2-acre organic garden. Another is our small industries and crafts, the main one of which is making hammocks. You can see some outside there, and later when we walk around.
See the medium stretcher that I found in the garden? I laid it across the table.
Yeah, here it is. I don't know.
You can find a mate for it, give us a sense.
Essentially, all the managers, the manager of each area of activity, decides for the coming week how much work has to be done in their area. Okay, then every member has a chance to say which activities Co would prefer to do during that week. Co is a word we use to mean him or her. And the things that you don't want to do will be given to somebody else that enjoys that more. If there's something that nobody wants to do, then everybody gets a little bit of it. And you get more credit for doing it.
we are forced at this point to go on outside work, to send people out of the community, either commuting daily into Richmond, or if they prefer to leave and go to Washington. In the case where they go off the premises to work on outside work, they're simply required to send back a minimum of $50 a week to the community. However, the people who go into Richmond every day get whatever jobs they can possibly get their hands on. And usually what this means is that everybody gets some kind of menial job. And the idea is to hold this job for a period of 2 months, at which point you leave the job.
And on the rest, they don't look like very much, but after you get to know them, well, it is a neat that they do. Wow. We're adjusting constantly. Our government is constantly changing. Our methods of dealing with personal problems are changing. Our norms on various subjects change all the time, and we do it very consciously. There are a great many perfectly human characteristics very common in the human race which could not work out in the community, and basically don't work out for the human race, don't work out for society in general. Such things as over-aggression, intense competitiveness, and so forth.
Okay. Prepare the carcass for hoisting by first going through the breastbone. You've done it. And completing the separation of the rounds and splitting Big 18.
Not everyone is going to put away the tools when he's through with them. Your choices are either accept it and don't expect the tools to be where they are, or learn how to put pressure through the group on careless people. So anyway, tolerance, yes. That's the big one. Work isn't just an aversive thing. Work is something that's part of life, and it's something that people really enjoy. And they especially enjoy it if it's varied and full of fresh learning experiences. So we keep those doors open, and it costs us, but we're willing to pay the price, because that's part of the good life. And the good life is, after all, what we're here for.
There's a managership for just about everything that you could possibly think of. The animal managership, the health managership, construction, auto maintenance, house, which involves seeing that the house is kept clean, seeing that different stock items are in the house, toilet paper, for instance. It gives everybody prestige, you know. What the hell, I'm a manager, you know. Wow, that's neat, you know. Everybody's a manager, big deal. The decision-making process at Twin Oaks in the planners' meetings is basically that of consensus. The planners are simply not going to pass any kind of decision if it's not a consensus of the community. The community does not want it to happen. Of course, there is the veto power. The community can veto a planner's decision.
Soup, sherry, sauté. Oh, yes. Subsusay. Shrimp, brown. Moose. Moose! No, chicken. Somebody on Egyptian kebabs.
Orange
I'm
juice
stewing
and
chicken
honey.
cut up now.
Sipping on
Sure.
dates and nuts.
Oh, no. We've done this before.
Come on, come on. I just have to stay all day. I think the reason that the attempt at a utopian society makes sense today more than has made sense at certain periods in the past is that there is a very large group. I'm talking about the children of middle-class families who had the opportunity for an excellent education, to whom the establishment does not offer anything attractive. All doors are being closed. Adventure is closed. Not only adventure, but high moral effort, significant effort, is closed off. And so they look for their own. Personally, I worked as a secretary in a big law office. I didn't especially enjoy working there. I thought the work was useless and silly. But it wasn't, and my life personally wasn't so bad that I had to escape it. The point was that the whole country, the whole world is, there is simply too much suffering. There's too much wrong, there's too much aggression, there's too much hatred, there's too much war, too much death, and 9/10 of it is unnecessary. And one wants to do something. And so you say, well, what can I do? I can demonstrate by my own life that a better alternative is possible, but that would be a bigger demonstration if I had a group of people to work with me. I've got some ideas of how a society ought to be. I read about them in a book called Walden 2. They strike me as fundamentally sound, really, really good intuitions on the part of Dr. Skinner. I'd like to try them out. So it ought to be possible for us to get together as a group and work on these ideas, work them out experimentally, and come to some conclusions. Do they work or do they not work? Is equality a good idea? Is it a viable concept? Can you get people to do work without paying them money? All these fundamental socialist questions. They're not new questions. There's older socialism. But they're new in their implementation. That is, not too many groups have actually got together and, without any fundamental religion, we're fundamentally a secular group with a socialist ideal, and actually working out these problems one at a time, day after day, practical solutions to theoretical ideas.
We aren't going to have the children raised by their biological parents alone, because we feel that, well, there are a lot of things that would be better done by more than one parent. You know, instead of having two parents, we'd like to have, 8 or 10 or something.
Whoever's interested in being a parent.
Yeah, and a lot of people may be interested in actually bearing the children, and going through that experience, but not be interested in, in them when they're 10 years old, or not be interested in them when they're infants, but interested in them when they're 10 years old or something. So, anyway, it would be better to have people who are really interested in child raising to do that. And it's not like the parents won't be allowed to do any child raising, because they can take as much part in it as they want to. If they want to be down there like full quota, assuming that anybody's down there full quota, then they're welcome to do that.
If it's not in a work situation, there's a tendency not to know other men, or not to make an effort to go out and to understand what other men are thinking about other subjects besides construction or whatever they happen to be doing work-wise around the community. It's hard to say why this is. Perhaps it comes from the old conditioning from childhood that men simply shouldn't have relationships with other men that are any deeper than business talk. They feel that they should be getting certainly much more out of relationships than sexual or business. It seems that those are extremes, and it's difficult to really get into a relationship somewhere in the middle. And this goes for relationships that men would have with men and women. And perhaps after the goal of reaching some kind of verbal intimacy has been reached, men would feel very confident in going into more sexual relationships with other men.
What are you sitting in?
Sleigh.
A sleigh?
Yeah, a sleigh, reindeer. Oh, this sleigh isn't pulled by reindeer. It's pulled by rats and pigeons.
I don't really think that that such a distribution of affection and love, having to spread it among 20 people, I don't think that this lessens the intensity, mainly because I don't believe that it's ever been figured what the human propensity towards love and affection is. It's not a given amount of energy that is distributed. It's it has the possibility of growing.
Eric?
Mm-hmm.
What has happened to your relationship with Josie? What is that? Do you feel it isn't?
I thought after the accident that things, at least on Josie's part, flamed up again.
I didn't know about it.
She was spending time with you, though, wasn't she?
Has that sort of been a kind of just a drifting apart rather than anything in particular happening?
No, it was specific things happening. It was my decision to terminate the relationship when I could no longer cope. That was before she fell in love with Ken.
Cope with?
Jealousy.
It's just so strange to me, Eric, because last year things were completely switched around. I mean, they look that way to me anyway.
There are two theories about what to do when somebody you have a relationship with is falling in love with someone else. One theory is that you should try and become friends with that person in order to avoid being jealous. Mm-hmm. The other theory is just to let it go, to let what happens. Mm-hmm. And I believe in the latter. The former just doesn't work for me.
I think it would work for me because when a man I care about is sleeping with a woman that I care about, I just don't feel very bad about it. Sometimes maybe if I'm feeling particularly lonely at the time and I see them together, I might feel a pang, but nothing like this.
But, you know, the ideal situation is to say, as long as what makes him happy makes me happy, and then the specific person doesn't matter. You just see that he's being happy, and so it makes you feel good.
That sounds great, but that just doesn't happen with me.
Well, maybe because you haven't worked on it enough yet, and also maybe because you don't have enough of a feeling or a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
I just ignore it as much as possible. There's nothing. I mean, I'm capable of preventing myself from acting in a jealous way.
Mm-hmm. It's been like an ideological commitment for me to try to be able to share. And also because I knew that I just couldn't have a relationship with Stephen any other way. You know, it's also a real security thing that allows us to move into relationships with other people because we have each other's love.
It's going to be interesting to me to see what kind of patterns develop over the next 5 or 10 years. Because I don't feel we've reached any kind of stability in terms of social patterns.
Gardner's just been here for, what, about
9 months?
9 months. Mm-hmm. And, of course, he was interested before he came, so I wasn't really surprised that he joined the community. In fact, I was rather glad that he had. Well, I certainly like the openness of the people. They're a very successful effort, I think, to get away from some of the artificial role-playing. I suppose I might be skeptical of the idea that cooperation can become a characteristic way of reacting to others. In other words, I feel that we have to learn to deal with our hostile impulses, and I don't think we can deny them.
It's an elite now, but as we progress, we've got to get less and less elite. Otherwise, Otherwise, we prove nothing. Certainly, I am not interested in being an elitist society for a certain kind of elite sort of person who comes out of a certain kind of background. That's absurd. Otherwise, if that's what we were, we wouldn't be socially significant, and we hope to be. I expect to see this movement grow. In my lifetime, I expect to see several hundred members on this land and several thousand members in communes related to this commune, economically related. If we're to do that, our culture has to be strong enough so that we can transfer the basic kind of consideration and feelings that we have for one another to people fast enough to grow that fast, if you understand me.
For me, the revolution is over. I'm living my life. I'm living in an alternative culture. And I feel that the only successful way that the revolution ever can be over is for more and more people to just drop out and start living alternative lifestyles, start living on the land, out of the big cities, out of contact with the government, away from the coercive agencies of government, police, engineering boards, city planners, city governments, tax collectors, and it can be done. People can do it. We have hassles right here, but we live a 100% less restricted life than the average citizen does, and that we do as we want, the way we want it, and we feel our responsibility towards each and every person as a brother and as a sister, instead of as a law-abiding citizen. We each learn from and teach each other. Everybody should try to develop at least one of the basic survival skills. Farming would be a very good one. Or hunting, building, mechanics, auto mechanics can be very helpful. You know, if they learn that, they won't have to be dependent on other people as much. We live in a community, and it's my feeling that everybody should live in small communities. We have enough people here. We have an engineer, an architect. We have some very good carpenters, a very good mechanic. We have some really great cooks. And we're trying to turn other people on to living outside of the coercive society and to not being a consumer through the paper that we put out and just through personal contact with people. If people, become skilled artisans again, something that's lost here in this country, the products will be much better. There will be fewer of them, but there won't have to be as many because they won't break as often. We use technology here, building solar-heated water heaters.
I live at a lot of different colleges. I live at Harvard and I live in Berkeley, and that's about the two weirdest colleges. And I think I got into that a little bit, seeing when those guys were out, the smart people in the country, and I met a lot of the professors and stuff. Well, I still didn't think they were where it's at because they were still out for like academic privileges and to get farther up in academia. And the students were just like into getting a good job still. A lot of them were smoking dope and taking LSD and even taking heroin. It's funny that students at Harvard took heroin. So then I got myself on a commune in Canada, and I lived there a couple months and just started experimenting with getting my true self out, you know what I mean? And experimenting with like not having to be paranoid about all the people and just working with a group of people. I was about 8. We were house painters. And then I thought the climate was too cold, and everybody I knew was a draft resistor, and I was wondering what was happening, that everybody was leaving, So then I came back to America, and I started taking a lot of LSD. And the LSD was just completely blew me away. It just knocked my entire old basis out, and I had to deal with this whole new reality I didn't understand. And I was just completely shocked that reality was this thing that we were locked out of, and it scared the heck out of me. I couldn't understand why was it so hard to just be with oneself and to like live with people? It just didn't make any sense. So 2.5 years ago, I came to Heathcote, and now I've learned a little more how to relate to people and a little more how not to like behave in stylized dramas, and just try to figure out, that the world's not is far out, and it's not really a horrible place. It's that the cities are horrible and the social system's horrible. The world itself is still really far out. It still works, and still the light's still pretty, and it's still far out.
The reason that I left the city was because I felt like in order to break certain cultural patterns that I no longer want to be a part of, that I had to be in a healthy environment, or an environment that had less conflict, and that in order to become a healthier and whole person, that I had to be in an environment that was healthy and whole, and so I moved to the country. And since I've been here, I've met other people who are who are looking in the same direction. For instance, this farm. Women here who have worked, who've been in the city and who've come here and are trying to live a full life in the country by having sheep and goats and cats and chickens and stuff. All the way up Middle Ridge Road, there are people who come together for music and poetry, and most people are very poor. A lot of people live without electricity, without running water, without all the main luxuries of life. Like I don't have a toilet. I go out into the woods. So that rather than my life becoming a habit, of like going and switching on the electricity, everything seems to be new. If I walk outside, I look at the trees in a new way each day, and to slowly get away from patterns and habits which only interfere with our lives and rather than make us whole people.
And I think the Vietnam War has kind of like pushed all of us to like make some stand. And I think, like our stand has been like a general strike. Our stand has been to refuse to like support the society with our skills and our tax money and our abilities, and to try to go off in the bush where we are and try to build something that's more meaningful, that is more gentle, that's more loving, that's more peaceful. Something that we're not afraid to bring our children up into. I myself have been arrested 8 times in, demonstrations, and you can just do that for so long, and then you say, well, here I am, and I'm a young man, and what am I going to do with my life, So one of the things that I tried to do with my life, one of my lives, was I decided to become a commercial success. And I worked my way up, and I became executive, and I had the 2 cars and a house in the Berkeley Hills, and I just could not go on living with myself any longer. I mean, because even though I had all of the things that money could buy, I had no life, and I couldn't sleep at night, and I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. Like the political lies are much easier to see through than the social lies and the sexual lies And a lot of these are not, like malicious lies. I mean, like I don't have any tremendous feeling of hostility really toward my parents or toward the straight society. It's just another level of consciousness. Well, one of the most important things in my father's upbringing was just to like have enough to eat. And we feel that by returning to the land and by harvesting our own food and building our own buildings and providing all the basic, as much as we possibly can of the basic necessities of life, that'll get us higher and return us more to the center and make us more independent of the machine. Like we're trying to build in our own stumbling, bumbling way a new society within the shell of the old. And I think one of the things that's obvious to all of us is that capitalism is just a really bankrupt economic system. At this point, the only choice really seems to me in the United States is either survival from without or sabotage from within. I think the society has gotten to a point where that's the only two choices open for an honest man.
When I got here, like, Ram had already been here for 5 years, and I had to deal with a lot of establishment. When people talk about getting high here, you become closer to God. You see that which is divine in yourself, and the way I do that is by getting low. Because I'm satisfied with this body, and this life, and this earth. And I want to accept them fully. I don't want to get away from them. I don't want to get up there. I just want to be more fully where I am and what I am. I know that if I stay right here on my spot and I just watch and I'm careful, that everything will come to me. Like all the nourishment of every kind that I need, all the lovers, all the teachers, all the food will come to me if I have that faith. And it's not a faith in anything. It's just faith. It's faith in nothing, maybe. Kind of blind that way. Sometimes that takes a lot of concentrated energy just to keep awake, just to, see what's living here on the mountain with you. And I write it down in a book, I try to be careful that way. And I see the things that grow here and the things that live here, and I just want to know them in all the stages of their age and youth and birth and death. The ones that live much longer than me and the ones that live just a few of my days. So there are no enlightened beings here. People get the wrong idea. They come up and they want something, They want to change. And maybe we can help them do that. Even though, we have nothing special. We have no monopoly on the light, whatever that is. People are going through a lot of very difficult changes. The family that formed the hub of this community broke up last summer with a lot of pain and a lot of just the old, rotten guts. We certainly haven't gotten through that yet. We're trying to learn how to live as a family. Well, who do the children belong to? That's another one. Do the children have one mother and one father, or do they have all these mothers and all these fathers? And how far am I willing to go, to take care of the children, be aware of their lives, even though they're not of my blood, maybe. How far am I willing to go? I think that's really what it comes down to. I mean, how much of a family can we become? And right now, it hurts a lot. People seem very much by themselves a lot of the time. And you break through that every once in a while, like it opens up and you can see right through. You can see a brilliant light there, which is what community can become, I think. I don't have any children myself. Living here, I'm just starting to become aware of children's lives, and maybe aware of the fact that we're all fathers and all orphans at the same time, and that we've just got to take care of each other.
Nobody. I am. You are.
Who's been in charge?
I am.
Well, who's running the place?
Me.
Who is in charge?
Who is in charge?
Who is in charge?
I am, and you are.
Who is really running it?
It's a collective effort of everyone that's part of this community.
Who is in charge?
Of the school? Or the building? Nobody. Everybody is.
Who is in charge of the building?
Everybody is.
Who's in charge?
Who's in charge of the building?
You're in charge right now.
You locked the door.
Who is really running it?
Who's really running the building?
What is this? Some kind of
the
quiz
cockroaches.
game?
This is a model for a society. This is a model for the way people can relate to each other. I think, it's one model, a changing model, something that changes, every day. Something new happens, some new reason for not doing something like one particular way comes up. It's not. Here it is, Project One defined. This is the way it's going to be from now on. I think that one of the biggest values of the whole thing is the fact that it's constantly changing.
Trying to make technology accessible to people who normally don't have access to technology. Use a computer as a social tool, as well as educate people on how computers are used and how they might be used in the future. Transamerica donated the 940, the computer system that we're giving, to us because it's surplus, just like this warehouse is surplus. And there are hundreds of warehouses south of Market that nobody's using. There are hundreds of thousands of computers in warehouses.
Thanks.
Each one of these pins represents an empty warehouse such as this. Same type of structure. Each one of these are the warehouse in red here are the warehouse communities that exist. These two here, this is where we are now. The green ones are really large warehouses and fabrication facilities that we hope to get into. These buildings are terrible environments. They're harsh, they're cold, they're very unforgiving. You drop something, it breaks. But in terms of trying to get away from alienation, isolation, they are best suited for that, because when people come in here, they build their own environment. They design the spaces as they want them. A person that is unlearned in, say, wiring will find out who can do wiring for the particular type of wiring that this person has in mind. He will go work with or learn from in any way for a couple of hours a day, whatever it takes from the person who knows, and he'll come back and do it himself. And through the familiarity that he gains with it, working with it, sooner or later he teaches somebody else.
We have to find out how we can build our resources, how we can produce, how we can work with each other where there's not a boss over me telling me what I'm going to be doing. At first, I kept on saying, "Well, where's the general insurrection? You know, where is it, and how come everywhere, there's not a general insurrection?" And it was a matter of a misperception on my part of what actually was going on. The fact that you're thinking then of people in a very abstract way, and here that's one thing you can't do. People are not abstract. They're real. They're very real, and you have all the problems in setting up an immediate situation. The only problem, all the stuff that's going to actually make society function in a way where you're not going to have a bureaucrat, and by everybody working on that, and you find out that that's a real basis for what a real insurrectional situation can be. Because, it all goes back to having a functioning organism.
I was very, very actively engaged in trying to work with government employees, denouncing the Nixon administration. And when my boss was fired, I resigned, and I just severed all my ties with everything. My family turned in my draft card, finally dropped out of this doctoral program at Columbia. And said, to hell with it, I'm going to go to California and go to the Bay Area and help set up a free school, because I wanted to work in education. And that, a year in the United States Office of Education is one of the most frightening things that an educator can ever go through. So, since the Bay Area seemed to be a real opportunity to learn a great deal, I decided to come out here and stumbled onto this place. It was a love affair from the beginning. At the same time, Shaw and I and some other people are trying to do home repair things, painting, wiring, plumbing, whatever, because I don't get paid for being here, but I want to be here, so I have to find ways to in as short a period of time as possible, make money and permit myself to do what I want to do, which is take pictures and talk with kids.
As I see the building as a positive force if we have a future, if this country, if on an international scope there is a future. It's one example of working socialism. Okay? I mean, we're constantly running into the contradiction because it's in a capitalist society. So, how socialist can you be while living in America? It's evident in this country that a lot of things aren't really threatening from their point of view. Oh, sure, the FBI feels threatened. You know, there's 200 million fingerprints on file. But I don't think that corporations like Bank of America or Transamerica feel threatened by us. We will be using technology, okay? This is their language. That's the kind of social change they always talk about. Do it within the system. But I don't think they even know how to start to understand where our consciousness is, or where our consciousness among some of us is.
People used to say when I first came there for the first months and months, they used to say that I was the house cynic, because everyone else was talking of, saying we're a family, and we all, there was a lot of words that went down, and I used to say, and they kept talking about trust and concern, and trust and concern, and after a while I said, trust is the last time that you mop the bathroom floor. That's what trust is. And if you're going to conquer your environment, you have to start from your own turf, like the hallway. I just, it has to, if you believe in something, you have to believe in it from something that comes from your gut that has nothing to do with the words that you tell other people. And I don't know exactly what that is, except that some people, I think, have a much larger need for it than other people.
I said, fuck everything. I can't handle all this, these problems in this world, these struggles, I'm not going to bear a cross. I'm no Christ figure. I'm just a regular old jerk, And on those terms, when I look at myself in those terms, I'm a nobody. There's no point. I'm not going to win. But you see, I was only fighting for myself at that point. And what happened was inevitable. A psychosis, that self-indulgent psychosis of self-centeredness led me right down the path to being a junkie. And I stuck a needle in my arm every day for a year, Till I was couldn't relate to myself, couldn't relate to the floors, the ceilings, or anybody else. And at that point, I had to decide whether I wanted to die or I wanted to live, And the only way to live, I discovered, was by being involved in myself, and hence being involved with other people. When you take out your own garbage, you get involved in looking, you discover the tremendous amount of waste. You look at that pile of garbage you have in front of you, say, wow, I did this and that and that and that, and why did I do this? What a waste, because you bought something, you decided you didn't need it, you throw it out. And you won't do it again. But now we just have people, they throw it in a garbage can, don't look at it, and pay someone a minimum wage to have it hauled away for them. But if you do that yourself, you get involved, you get your hands dirty in the garbage, you come out smelling and dirty and so forth. You're going to think more about waste. And once you start thinking about waste, you can't help but think about monopoly capitalism and what it does to this world, because that's what it does. It wastes us all. That's why I took the garbage and tried to institute it in this building, try to start a garbage system. So by practice, and also by getting people involved, doing one project, socializing that activity, this complete education, taking out your garbage.
And I think a lot of the women's movement, a lot of the immediate strength that came out of the women's movement was finding that negative energy, putting that out and fighting it. But that it's really important for me in my life now to find out how to not feel constantly vulnerable and insecure. Vulnerable in the sense that if I say, Holly, I think you're just an asshole bitch, that puts me in a strong position because I'm coming down on you. And you're in a defensive position. If I say, Holly, I love you and need you, that puts me in a vulnerable position because I put myself in a position where you can say, well, I love and need you. And I'm in a position of rejection. And so it's having, learning how to feel strong with those positive feelings, rather than constantly having to feel strong by telling somebody they're an asshole or a bitch or a male chauvinist pig.
What I was feeling was that this is not necessarily the healthiest place for women to get it together. And
I lasted out for 5 months, totally hysterical and totally jealous. And I confronted Joe and said, "Are you sleeping with Ralph?" But at the time she hadn't been, you know. But I confronted other women, and they said no, and they were bullying him. They were bullying him, and the crazy thing was that they were all perpetuating my feeling of insanity. And so I felt like there was no woman's movement at all in this movement.
Yeah.
You know? And I just, you know, like I listen to people talk, women who have been going to women's meetings, and they're very bored, you know, and you know, it's like they're not talking intimately with each other. And I find that, you know, like, why isn't that happening?
I agree with you that
Certainly with us because we're friends.
yeah, in the building there is like different groups of women who talk to each other and talk intimately. Like I don't work with you people, but when I talk to you, I talk intimately.
Right.
And I just feel very open with you. But some other people in the building, it's my own paranoidness that I feel that they don't like to talk that way with me. So I don't talk to them that way.
But why you set an environment that you can't be open with as many people as possible?
But I feel there are enough people here that I can be open with.
Advanced technological plant where they spend a lot of time and money to think of how to make workers satisfied with their jobs. There's a strike, a wildcat strike, that goes on for a long time. And when army disintegrates, when men refuse to go into battle, to me those are cathartic situations that I want to see my actions reinforcing and precipitating. I see the fact that buildings, they're places people can come in. They're places that can reinforce.
Okay, well, you know, I've seen, you know, through personal experience with it, that these houses can shelter all sorts of diverse bedfellows and provide the contact, which is not easy to acquire in ordinary circumstances. But that still doesn't answer me. How does what goes on in these places relate beyond that thing that you were talking about, the personal contact between you and Joe Patel, to these satisfying or productive explosive actions, like very lengthy wildcat strike? How can
I'm not sure.
I mean,
for me, it's going to be that I learn something, and somehow that somebody comes in and they spin off. I mean, that spin-off is really a fine way of looking at it, because then you go out and you do something, you precipitate something else happening, and that keeps on going.
If conditions got such that I had no choice but to step back into, say, tutor engineering, where I worked before, okay? I could do that only under the following circumstances. That I still had, you know, ingrained in my genetic code a sense, you know, a very strong sense that there was a possibility of moving beyond that, okay? Sure. If I felt that I had to go back into the world I came from and stay there, I would not. I would either immediately go out and buy myself a gun and shoot everybody I could find, or I'd shoot myself, or maybe I'd do the person in the latter, okay? But I would not, and that's a really important distinction, you see.
Can you, living here in this community, you know, have the same quality of life or a better one, you know?
Oh, I do.
Than you could if you were pulling in $30,000 and maybe had a lot of
quality of my life is 1,000-fold better here than it ever was when I was making many times as much money as I'm making now.
many members do you have here in Project One?
Here, there are roughly 250 people who make really heavy use of it. Okay?
And how many of the 250
Are here 24 hours a day?
Yes.
About 115. Law doesn't mean a damn thing in this city. It's just a matter of who's in power. And also they respond to numbers, okay? I've had, in the last 2 weeks, I think 3 calls from artists doing the traditional artist thing. He's rented a loft in a building all by himself, and he's as weak as a newborn baby, okay? 1 code violation, 1 heavy bureaucrat comes in, I can see that you're just 1 person. It's a different situation here. Arto represents another 200-300 people. This group represents the same thing. We're putting together a package in the effort to take over 6 major buildings as a package in South America, okay? There's an honest-to-God, full-blown educational program, okay? But education in terms that people live and learn, okay? And they do it best when they're in control of the situation. Well, people find it hard to believe that a group of strange-looking people like us can come up with $4,200 every month without
No, I'm not commenting on
Yeah,
that.
I think
there's
it's
an awful
nothing.
lot of people that you know,
No,
look
I mean,
very fancy. They
it is
don't
a
come
lot
up
of
with any money. It doesn't have anything to do with how anybody looks. In fact, you know, the better people look, in quotes, sometimes the less likely they are to come up with any money.
We managed to do it through various operations of the building to produce income. We cover for each other.
Benign attitude of the city officials with respect to the warehouse movement is not something that existed. It's something that was created by the efforts of the people in this building to seek out those levers of power, to talk to the Board of Supervisors, to attempt to get favorable publicity in the press, to in general build up a political base.
This is an entity that doesn't have any money. So what we're really talking about is if Ken asks me, what assurances do I have, what protection do I have that these people are going to do what they're talking about? Am I correct that the only thing I can tell him is his judgment on their good faith and abilities? That is, there's no possibility.
There's a very lawyer-like response you can give.
The only thing that's going to carry us through is the amount of determination that each person has and the amount of patience that each person has to keep trying things and to keep being able to start over in small ways if things don't work out. That none of us really know what a lot of the answers are. None of us really have a model to go on. In the society that I came out of, people had a tendency to believe that if they put themselves in contact with other human beings and if things didn't work out, that there would be no other experiences, that they would then retire and be afraid to take risks again and be afraid to make themselves vulnerable. Whereas I know that from being on the West Coast that the opportunity is always there. You just have to take it. It's very hard to take it. It doesn't happen all at once, but it's there.
It's a grand old flag, it's a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may it wave. It's the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue, where there's never a boast or brag. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the grand old flag.
50 years later, some members of Project One get together to recall their experience in the community.
Hi, Luciano. This is in response to your re-edit of the Project One, the film on communes, of which Project One is a major feature. And we're here to talk about the impact that Project One had on your life.
I felt free for the first time in my life to do something that I honestly believed was worth doing, even though it didn't make any sense to a lot of people. You know?
The idea of community was really important to me coming in, and it was strengthened. And my ability to negotiate inside a community, to organize inside a community, to muster as much respect as possible so that we could achieve consensus. That really, really helped me in everything I have done after one.
The second value was the belief that people could learn to actually talk to each other without intermediaries directly, and could voice their deepest fears and feelings and needs and have them heard, even if there was disagreement.
But these were indelible experiences.
They were.
And it wasn't just social, it was the fact that you were trying to resolve particular life issues and daily life issues together. And so as Ralph said, there were all the conflicts that emerge, but you know.
I remember our women's group meetings, and one in particular,
we acted on it in very pragmatic ways. We did it in the meetings once we started counting and noticing how few women were there and how easily they got shut down. So we really worked against the inherent invisibility that comes in gendered situations, and that stuck with me.
This male ego, it's there, and it has to have a democracy. You have to deal with that. There's no way around.
And I'll start by saying probably the most important thing about Project One was developing these friendships that I still have and meeting my husband.
Fun.
And
it was fun. I learned so much. I learned music, and I learned politics, and I learned construction skills, and I learned computer skills, and I had a lot of sex with a lot of people. It was really fun. It was an amazing experience.
And I think for me, it was being able to think outside the box, just jumping into things I never would have thought of doing.
And I'd like to jump in on that too, as I feel that all this building that we did, the structures, I felt there were no limits to the things that I could do with the people. And I've been shocked to learn how ignorant we were. I don't really remember so much going out, physically going out. I know that's what we wanted to do, but it didn't really seem like our computer could do the things that we really wanted to do. I mean, I envisioned that we'd have terminals everywhere, and that people could just type in things, and it just didn't seem like we got there. There was a hurdle.
I had the vision of like Pam and Lee Felsenstein with his community computers, but I don't think the technology was developed.
One of the things I learned that affected me later on was realizing that underneath all the politics, what most of the people coming there were looking for was a place to fit in, that wasn't dominated by the great imperial capitalist United States. And I think that we've all continued that struggle for the last, how long is it now? 50 years.
I consider myself exceedingly fortunate to have tried to maintain these values in the past 50 years since my involvement with our community on Howard Street.
I'm basically still the same person I was when I was there, I never really got past it, you know. And I think it was an idea that if people look at it carefully, it represented a tearing apart of the status quo fabric, and it represented people doing what young people are doing now, which is trying to create a truly democratic society. And what we tried to do, at least in the early days of Project One, was to create a community run on democratic principles where no one was the head cheese. I think in large part we were successful doing that, you know.